All right, Senator, first thing, just tell us a little bit about this forum you're having here today.
Well, this is an energy forum, so we can talk and get input, hear ideas about what is the greatest immediate challenge I think our country faces. I've been working on the Senate floor to try to get votes and action so we can have a coherent energy policy, including drilling and producing more right here at home. But today we have 3 experts and also going to hear from citizens who have come out to talk about all sorts of energy issues.
Yeah, let's start there. Tell me a little bit, what are you hearing from pretty much your constituents about these high gas prices and more importantly, the long-term outlook of energy?
Well, folks want action from Congress. You know, this is the biggest challenge most Louisiana families face. Hits their pocketbook directly. It's the biggest immediate challenge we face as a country. So folks are rightly saying, why doesn't Congress get real and act on this, which is exactly what I'm trying to demand in the Senate.
Well, what's your answer as to why it isn't?
Well, unfortunately, you know, the leadership in Congress, particularly Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi, have been blocking votes on energy, particularly on domestic drilling. But I think pressure is building, and I think when we come back into session right after Labor Day, there's going to be enormous pressure to have a real energy debate and real votes on a whole spectrum of energy proposals.
One of the things we hear your fellow Senator Barack Obama talk about is that the oil companies aren't even really using a lot of the territory that they already have leases to, but it's kind of not that simple an issue, is it?
I think that's a pure smokescreen. You know, what folks like Barack point to is the fact that we have federal leases, and on some of those leases there's not production right this minute. Well, you're never going to have production on every lease. First of all, there isn't oil under every lease. The company has to go in and do the geology to see what's there. Secondly, it takes some amount of time, even where there's oil, to build a rig and get production going. So I really think that's a smokescreen to completely avoid the drilling issue. I think the American people get that.
And that's another thing we hear, the reason not to drill is that it'll take 10 years to get to it anyway, but if we had maybe started on that 10 years ago, we'd be there right now.
Those same people were making the same argument 10 years ago, and it's a shame they won out then. But we can produce new energy quicker than 10 years, and we can have an impact on the price a lot quicker. Because if Congress acts in a bold way and does something important like lift the moratorium on domestic production, I think that will have an immediate positive impact on the futures market and on price.
And all of this, too, really goes into our national security because of, you talk about the massive transfer of wealth, and some of that's really working against us.
Absolutely. Our energy situation is creating the biggest transfer of wealth in human history, and it's away from us, and it's toward many of our enemies in the war against terror. So it really is a national security situation, and energy independence is important not just for economic reasons, but for security reasons.
What can you tell the Senate or tell people on a national level about what's been happening in Louisiana and off the coast of Louisiana in terms of the technology that is available today and the state of the industry overall, in terms of making people maybe more at ease or confident that this is something that the U.S. can be a front leader on?
Well, you know, the first thing I'd love to do with every member of the Senate, every member of the House, if I could, is bring them fishing in the Gulf. Because you know where the best fishing is? It's directly under the oil rigs. It helps make the point that with our current technology, we can do this in a very safe, environmentally sound way. Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Rita both ripped through the Gulf, toppled a lot of rigs, but that new technology worked. Those valves shut off. There was very little leakage whatsoever. In fact, these days, the greatest environmental leakage threat from oil by far is tanker collisions. And tankers go up as imports go up. Tankers go down as domestic production increases.
Good point. How about as far as the refinery capacity? What kind of things would have to be improved or changed here in the United States?
Well, you're exactly right. We also need greater domestic refinery capacity, because if we just find more here at home but have to ship it overseas to be refined and then re-import it, that's not doing much. And so I'm fighting, working with many other folks to streamline the regulatory process so we can expand refineries in this country and build new refineries. I'm also looking at proposals like using closed military bases, which are often relatively isolated spots, to site new refineries.
I want to talk about a couple of other issues before. I know you got to go into the forum here, but the vice presidential search, we're hearing that decisions are imminent. Who would you like to see Senator McCain choose?
Well, you know, I'm just following the paper and following things like everybody else. I think there are several good choices on the Republican side. Being very, very selfish, I want Governor Jindal to stay in Louisiana. I think he's doing a great job. I'd like to see somebody with a business background and a clear conservative like Mitt Romney. And I think he's clearly one of the top contenders.
And I know the big thing right now is a discussion that he might select somebody who would be pro-choice, and some people feel that'd be pretty disastrous.
I would have real concerns about that. I'm strongly pro-life. I think it's very positive that the Republican Party and our presidential candidate has always been pro-life in terms of this recent debate, and I certainly don't want that to change.
I also want to ask you about the race that's happening here in this state for the other Senate seat, John Kennedy against Mary Landrieu. How do you see that race going so far?
Well, you know, it's up to the voters to decide. I think it's going to be competitive. Of course, I make no bones about it. I'm supporting John Kennedy because I think he's the sort of conservative voice, particularly on fiscal issues, that we need in the U.S. government. When you look at fiscal restraint, when you look at balancing the budget, when you look at saving Social Security, all of those demand strong fiscal conservatism, which I think John Kennedy clearly provides.
And final question, what should voters look forward to coming up in September once Congress and the Senate kind of reconvene?
Well, for me, issue one is going to be energy. And I'm going to be on the Senate floor, as I was all through July, demanding that we have an open, fair debate and votes on energy proposals, both on the demand side, things like conservation and greater fuel efficiency, but also on the supply side to find and produce more right here at home.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.